Welcome back. This is Tiffanie Travels, where we help women and families travel, build wealth, and live richer. So, on my channel, you'll find travel vlogs around the world, as well as interviews with expats who have moved abroad. So, today I have a special guest who is joining us from France. Hi.
Hello, how are you?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us. So we can start by you introducing yourself and telling
Um,
us about your channel and what kind of content people can find there.
okay, I'm Patricia Brooks. I am an American living in the south of France and have been since 2018. And I have a YouTube channel, Patricia Brooks, the Courage Catalyst. And on that channel, I share content about my life in France, about making a move abroad and the mindset work that is so necessary to do it and have the kind of results that you want. And really just living the kind of life that you know you were meant to, but maybe have some fears and doubts about. And I help people who are ready to start the next chapters of their lives living and thriving in a foreign country as a life coach. So that's a little bit about me.
Nice. Do you work with people in all different phases of life, like retirement or still working, young people? You help everyone move abroad?
Yeah, so my focus has been I have a signature program called the Carefree Expat Incubator Program, and that is for single women who want to make the move abroad on their own, because that's my experience. Um, and it was challenging for me. I wasn't necessarily certain that I could do this thing. And then when I made the move abroad on my own, it was great for 2 weeks. And then all of a sudden I had this panic attack because I had come when I left the United States, I had come on a career break. So I had quit a good paying job. I was in a country where I knew nobody. And I was starting to question and doubt whether or not I had done such a wise thing. And so I created the program to help other single women have a community and a support system so that they can feel like they are making the move abroad, but not feel like they're doing it all alone.
Okay, we have some people who have joined us. I'm going to put your channel here. It's Patricia Brooks Courage Catalyst, so people
Hmm.
can find you there. We
Hmm.
have Veronica, which is Taylor V Living. This is the friend I was telling you about. She's thinking about moving to France, so I'm sure she'll have some questions. Hi,
Hello.
hi,
Oh, hi, Dion. Thanks for joining.
we have Beverly. Hi, Beverly.
Hello.
C. Wilson, and this is my mom. Hi, mom.
Hello. Wonderful.
So we could start with why did you want to leave America? Why did you need to take a career break?
Well, I ask myself that question all the time, and it's the subject of my third book because I am a very rational, logical person who was meant to, retire in the United States and then do the thing that lit me up. But in 2015, 2016, I got this urge to live in a French speaking country. And I don't know where that urge came from, but it became stronger and stronger. And I considered moving to Canada, to Quebec City. But the winters there for me were just like, yeah, no, I don't think I could manage that. And so in 2015 was the first time that I came to France. I came to Paris, and I spent a couple of days in Aix-en-Provence, and I could see myself living in France, but just not those two cities. And so um, for me, I wanted to speak French fluently. Right? It's something that was later in life. It's just this desire to speak French, and so that was really the reason that I moved to France. That was my primary motivation. Now there were some things that I had this undercurrent of something going on, something brewing, but it wasn't like, oh, I have to get out of the United States. It was just, oh, I'd like to live in a French speaking country and speak French.
Okay. So you were pulled to France rather than leaving something else. It was more
Yeah.
being drawn.
Well, yeah, I think that there's a combination of things going on. I love, personal growth, a challenge, right? So I thought if I move or when I move to France, there's going to be lots of challenges for me. I'm not going to be having to look for a new challenge, every 3 months once I accomplish something. So, and that has been true. 7 years in, there's still challenges that I'm working to face. It was the language, but there was something else, something brewing that I only could see or understand or feel when I was out of the United States. So once I had made my move to France, then I felt so much more relaxed, so much more at ease. But that wasn't what I was running from, even though I there was something there. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. It's like knowing something's not quite right, but not knowing what it is.
Yeah. And not thinking that, well, that's why I'm leaving the United States.
Okay. And so you're in France. Which city are you in?
I am in a village of 8,000 people called Ceret, Ceret, and it is about 40 minutes outside of Perpignan. That's the biggest city that I'm close to. And I'm right on the border of Spain. So it's about a 10-minute car ride to cross the border to Spain.
Okay. So, and was that the first city you moved to, or did you move to other cities in France?
So the first city I moved to, the first city I lived in was Perpignan.
Okay.
And that was a city that in 2015 was the first time I came to France. 2016, I came back because I'm like, okay, yes, France is the country, but I don't know the city. And so I kind of did a tour of France and started out in Toulouse, which was a lovely city, but not my city. But while I was there, I read in a guidebook about Perpignan, which is a city of about 120, 130,000 people. And there was a picture of the center of town that was lovely, and a little anecdote in the book that talked about Salvador Dali, the artist, saying that the train station in Perpignan was the center of the world. And I thought, oh, that's odd. I think I want to take a day trip there and see. And so it was a 2-hour train ride. And I got on the train. It was a Sunday. It was a drizzly, dreary day in May. Got out of the train station, which is just a normal train station. And even though the weather was not beautiful, I I felt something. It felt like this could be my new home. And it was just a day trip. It was a Sunday. Everything was closed, so I really didn't get to see the city alive. Got back on the train to Toulouse. A couple days later, went on to Lyon, another big city, which is lovely, but not my place. And I couldn't stop thinking about Perpignan. And so I took the train back to spend a couple of days to see if what I felt was real. And that's where I spent my first year. And the only reason that I left Perpignan was because I couldn't find the neighborhood within that city that felt right to me. And
Okay.
Surrey is that place for me now.
Okay. So Taylor V wants to know, did you begin your French class immediately after moving there?
So I hadn't anticipated taking a French class. I'd done the Pimsleur method while I was in the United States, and that's a program, an audio program that I listened to for 30 minutes a day on my morning walk. And I repeated the prompts, and I thought, oh, my French is pretty good. And then got to France and was out of my element, so couldn't think very clearly. And so even the French that I knew, I really couldn't access it just because it was just I couldn't think clearly. And that was when I realized that, oh yeah, you know what? I probably do need to take a proper French class. And for that reason, but also because I felt like, well, I could speak French a little bit and I could understand slow spoken French. I couldn't read or write it, right? I was illiterate. And so I did sign up for classes about a month into my first year here.
Okay. And how long do you think it took to get fluent in French?
So, that's a hard question to answer, right? Because it's really a matter of how much time with it that you devote to it, right? So, I started relearning French because I did take French in high school and at university, but just for the grade. So I started relearning French in 2014 when before my first solo trip to Quebec.
Okay.
And so that's when I started to relearn it. I called myself fluent in French in 2019, about a year and a half after I'd moved to France. And I say that I was fluent because I had a conversation with an auto insurance agent on the phone. He understood me, I understood him, and I said, "Okay, I'm claiming this." But so it's really a hard thing. Like if you
Yeah.
spent, 6 months and that's all you did, maybe you could get to a certain level of fluency.
Yeah, a year and a half immersed in the culture is good. That's a good time frame. So Beverly says, my husband and I spent a little time in the south of France. We had a friend with the house in, is this Mandelieu?
Sounds good to me. Yeah. I don't have no idea where that is, but it
It's
sounds like it would
so
be beautiful.
beautiful there. Okay. Very pretty in south of France. So how did you handle the visa process coming over initially? Did you have a tourist visa initially, or how did that work?
All right. So I came on a visitor visa,
Mhm.
which allowed me to stay in France for a year, at the end of which I could renew. And in my interpretation of this visa, it was a visa that I was not allowed to work on. And so I had that visa for 2.5 years. And I was on this career break. I was living off of savings, which was another reason why I'm like, oh, Patricia, what have you done? It just felt really wrong to be doing that, but it was really the best thing that I could have done. After that, that first 2.5 years, I thought, well, my savings aren't going to last forever. And so that's when I thought I needed to figure out how I was going to support myself. And when I was in the States, I'd become a certified professional coach. So I had that as a skill, and that had been in the back of my mind to do. And then now that I had this experience moving to France, living in France, I thought, oh, now's the time for me to create a program to help single women just like me.
Okay. So you didn't, when you went over there, you didn't have an idea of what you were going to do. It kind of came to you while you were there.
Yeah, in the back of my mind, I thought I've got this certification. It would be nice to use it. But when I coached a handful of people after I got my certification, and I thought, oh, I seem to be, finding and coaching and counseling or therapy are really close on the scale, but they're different. So I'm not a therapist and not trained to deal with those things, the things that people are dealing with who seek out help. And so when I got my certification and I had the handful of clients I had, it seemed like I had to refer everybody to a therapist. And I thought, well, maybe this just isn't my thing. And so I didn't create a thriving practice in the States. And I thought, well, but maybe that's something I could do, but I didn't know my niche. I wasn't certain that that was going to be the thing. And then having done this thing that I wasn't necessarily so sure I could do, and having had a couple of years of experience doing it, I thought, yeah, this is what I need to do. This is who I need to help.
Okay. So you were living off of your savings,
Mhm.
and what were you saving for, like a break, or was that retirement savings? And then also, what was your expenses like that first year or two years?
Okay, so my father always said, "Oh, you need a rainy day fund."
Mhm.
Okay, so I'm like, okay, get a rainy day fund, and so that's what my savings was. It was, if my car broke down or the water heater went, the thing of it was I had in 2010. Well, I guess it was a little before then I started to pay down my debt. And so that I became debt free except for my house.
Mhm.
And but I kept still squirreling money away into this rainy day fund. So it grew and grew and grew and grew and grew to be able to support me for a few years in France. So that was that pot of money. Now, the problem with that was it was an emergency fund, right? And well, I hired a coach to help me to figure out what was blocking me because I'd wanted to move to France for, since 2015. And here it was 2017, and I was still thinking about it, not doing anything to make it happen. So I hired a coach. She asked me how much I needed to support myself for a year in France, and I didn't know the answer because I was afraid to look at my savings and to look at what the requirements were. Well, that was my homework. I did that and saw that I had more than enough. And so made that move. So but still before that, I had to come to terms with can I use my emergency fund for this thing that doesn't feel like an emergency? Right. And a coach friend of mine said, she said, what if moving to France is the emergency? And
Mhm.
that shifted my perception. So that's the first part of the question. The second part of the question, what were my expenses like my first year in France? Um, in terms of rent, my rent was a little higher than it is now, only because the apartment that I had rented initially, which was a good deal, maybe 650 euros a month, had this horrible smell of sewer gas, and I panicked. And I found another apartment that was much nicer, newly renovated, bigger. And so then was spending $900, 900 euros a month, which was way, way too much. And my banker said, "Oh, well, your rent, why is your rent so high?" So I feel like I had gotten taken there.
Mhm.
But so that part of it wasn't good, but I learned my lesson.
Is that common, the sewer gas? Because I hear about that for like Italy and cities. They're older cities, so their pipes are older. Is that common? Something you find in those older buildings?
I think so. I have there's a couple who just moved to town who I know, and they bought a place. And what happens, I think, is that there's a trap that doesn't have enough water in it or whatever to keep the smell down or whatever. So I'm not sure why that seems to be an issue here, but yeah, I've heard other people have that problem as well.
Yeah. Okay. And
But
then
it's not but I don't think it's in every place, like, there
yeah.
are lots of places that don't have it, but some do.
And so 800, I guess if 900 was too much, then probably 800 euro a month is about normal for a one bedroom. Is a one bedroom?
So I can tell you what it is, what I pay now, right? That might be more helpful. It's not the city. I think it's probably similar. Like the 650
Wow.
euro range. For I've got a two-bedroom, I'm paying 620, but I got a really good deal. Um, so something that's, you know, two-bedroom might be a little bit more, but it's quite reasonable. That in what I'm paying, right? I'm not a real estate agent. I'm just sharing what I pay.
Yeah, I mean, that's super affordable,
Mhm.
especially when compared to the US.
Oh,
That is
yeah.
super, super affordable.
Well, absolutely, because the thing of it is I I I started this business here in France, and I think about how fortunate I am that I can be entrepreneurial, grow a burgeoning business, and be able to support myself on what I'm earning. I think about what I'm earning now and the what it would cost me in the States to live, and I would not be able to do it.
Yeah, yeah. So similarly, the other expenses are quite low as well, utilities and groceries.
So, utilities like electricity seems to have increased a lot this year. Like this winter, my electric bill seemed like it almost doubled. Um, so that electricity is high, can be high. Last month I paid, which wasn't winter, but still I paid 108 euros for the month, when I'd been paying about 75 or 80 euros. And so it, depends on the time of the year, but like in the fall, it was, to me, that was reasonable, but then the increase happened. So I think we had a particularly cold winter, but I think the electric prices had gone up as well.
And then do you eat out a lot or do you cook more?
Yeah. No, I basically cook most of my meals. Um, and that's just because I prefer to not have so much sodium. And I kind of still eat like the foods I would have cooked if I was in the United States, right? I'm not cooking. When I came to France, I had this wonderful idea. Oh, I'm going to learn to cook French cuisine. And a friend of mine bought me a French cookbook, and I think that's like this thick, and I think I can cook maybe 2 recipes out of that.
Okay. Okay. So Beverly says, wow, I'm pleasantly surprised at how affordable it is to live in France. The rent is really reasonable. Nice to know. Yeah, 625, 650 euros for 2 bedrooms is just unheard of. Yeah.
Well, and it depends on where you go. You go to Paris, that's not what you're going to pay.
Yeah. Yeah. So Taylor V wants to know, which school did you attend to obtain your coaching certificate?
So I went to IPEC, Institute for Professional Excellence in Coaching, and they have different pods across the U.S. or across the world. I went to the Washington D.C. cohort.
Okay. How would you describe the culture in France? And did you know what it was going to be like before you got there?
I mean, that's a loaded question. It's a wide open question. Okay, so you've got the culture of people, right? So what are the people like? They're polite. They're not necessarily the warmest people, but they're friendly enough. And then when you get to know them, they're, just like anybody else. Culture-wise, I think one of the things that I find challenging is the idea of personal space, and I talk about this a lot in in some of my videos, how I like to have a certain perimeter around me, and people talking close or just right up on me in line in the grocery store. So that is definitely something that I've had to adjust to, or even just bumping into you, like it's like that is really encroaching, right?
Yeah.
I think that there is definitely a culture of enjoying life. Like the French take time out. When they have holidays, stores are closed. For example, Easter was Sunday, and I was preparing for a workshop on Saturday, and have an intern so I was training last week. And so I just hadn't thought about going to the grocery store. And so I thought, oh, I'll just go on Sunday morning. The grocery stores are open. That's another thing, cultural thing, are open Sunday mornings here, and then they close, in the afternoon and evening. And so I thought, oh, I'll just go on Sunday morning. And then 3:30, in the morning on Sunday, I woke up and I realized, oh, the stores are going to be closed. And I didn't have much in my refrigerator. Fortunately, there was kind of a convenience store at the edge of town that was open. But store hours too. Like if I want to go to the grocery store, I can't go at 9 o'clock at night, right? I can't go at 7 o'clock in the morning. It's not open. So things like that, those are definitely cultural differences and a part of the culture that allows people to take time for themselves and for their family.
Okay, so more of an emphasis on family. Yeah, I noticed that too when I go to the Caribbean, for example, and the Caribbean will be closed. Businesses, restaurants will be closed like Sunday morning because it's expected that everybody's going to church, and they're like, "You don't need to be here. You're supposed to be in church." So I can see that being the case over there, just family focused. I went to Paris. I've been there a couple of times, and I told my last guest who lives in Paris that I was at a coffee shop and I laughed like an American laugh. It was kind of loud, and the
That's
owner
that.
the owner kind of looked at me like she did not appreciate me laughing and enjoying life.
Yes. Well, so when I was in Nice earlier this month, I had a meetup at a restaurant, and it was all Americans. Some people who had already made their move, some people who were on a scouting trip, and there were 13 of us. So we got a little bit loud, and one of my clients who lives there now was there, and she's like, "Tone it down. We're getting looks."
Yeah. Yeah, so it's different in that way too. It's like something to get used to, the culture that what do they do? They just whisper? Because I like, for example, Asia is really frowned upon to be loud in restaurants or any public anything. You just very like almost a whisper out in public. So in France, is it just keeping everything to a regular conversation volume?
Yeah, I think so. And it's interesting because one time I was on the train. I was coming from, I guess, Paris back to Perpignan, and the train was quiet until a certain point in the trip, and that was a city called Valence. And after that, I noticed that the it was a little noisier. So I think maybe the people in the south might be a little bit noisier than the people in the north. Um, and based on that train experience, that's I extrapolate, but I don't know if that is true or not.
Interesting. So Dion says, what do you miss most about the US?
I think it's a good question, Dion. Um, I think I'm really getting used to the store hours, but that was something like in the middle of the day here, stores, the post office closes. So like if you want to run an errand, at noon to to the post office, you're not going to be able to do it. So that was something that bothered me before, but I think I've really adjusted to that. I think the thing that I miss most about the US is having a an environment in my apartment that I can regulate the temperature and the humidity easily, because we don't have central heating and air. We don't have an HVAC system. Um, I have a dehumidifier because there's that. I do have a wall air conditioning unit, but it's not the same.
Yeah. So with the store closing midday, is that a regional thing because you're close to Spain? And so are they taking some of the Spanish culture with the siestas, or is that all over France?
Um, I can't speak for whether it's bigger cities are going to have things that are going to be open like all the time. And the supermarkets are open, throughout. But here, as I said, well, there's some grocery stores that do, like if there's organic store, they might close for the lunch hour. It's for lunch. It's not, they're not taking a nap, they're eating. They take meals seriously. It's not to be rushed, it's to be enjoyed, savored. So um it's and I like to go to the grocery store. The grocery stores are open. I like to go to the grocery stores at lunchtime because there are fewer people there.
Oh, okay.
So, I mean, there's really, the focus is on eating. So, yes, we're South. Um, Maybe there's some influence there, but and where I live now, at some points in history used to be Spain, right? So there is a mixing of culture. This is Catalan country, so with Saturday markets, we'll have paella. You know, they'll be selling paella, you know, which are like, but you're in France, yeah, but we're so close to the, well, there's the Catalan influence, but then also the Spanish influence.
Okay. Okay. And so you moved to France alone. So did you have a hard time making friends initially in those 2 years, or what were some of the things that you did? Did you feel lonely moving abroad?
So yes, I think there. So for me, I have introvert tendencies. I enjoyed being on my own, but I knew that about myself, and I knew that I might stay inside. So my my goal was to get out and meet people. So there's a website called OVS, On va sortir, let's go out. It's kind of like Meetup, but it's French, where people will arrange, you know, there's an art opening, so they'll arrange to have a group of people go so that you're not going by yourself. So I signed up for things like that. There was somebody who had a laughter yoga session. And so I was like, that was one of the first things I did. And I had never heard of laughter yoga, didn't know what it was, but I knew I liked to laugh. And I thought, well, this is interesting. Kind of like the idea, oh, Perpignan sounds interesting. So I went to that, and I started to attend that regularly. And so I made friends there. In fact, in September of my first year, I signed up for to become a laughter yoga instructor. And so uh, so that's one of the ways I did, just by going out and doing things. The thing, the the French class was a great way to meet people as well, because they were foreigners, and so I made some friends that way. I think the thing that I learned about that was about myself was that I needed to be intentional, and I also needed to recognize that I'd rather be on my own and alone than to be around people who I just didn't have anything in common with, or this weren't, my vibe. But I was kind of forcing it initially because I didn't want to be alone. I wanted to have that experience. And so I think the thing that people need to know or think about is that, making friends and building relationships does take time. Um, in my first year, I met somebody who I still am friends with and who is a really good friend. He helped me study for, I recently took a French exam called the DELF at the B2 level. And he helped me, with my presentation skills. So I, I I think it just takes time.
Okay. And do you have friends and family come visit?
I have had my best friend, who I've known since I was 11. She came to visit in November. So she flew into Barcelona. We spent a couple of days in Barcelona. Then we drove up to my place, and we stayed here for about 4 days, and then she went home. So she's visited me. I've had another friend come visit me. I thought that more people would visit than have, especially early on. Like the first year and a half, nobody did. And then an acquaintance, not necessarily, but somebody I knew well, raised her hand and said, "Can I come?" And I'm like, "Okay." And now we're really good friends. And then somebody I met actually at a conference my first year here, who lives in Norway, um, she asked if she could come, and I was like, "Well, I'm here. I'm experiencing new things. Maybe I need to be more open." And she came. We had a great time, and she repaid the favor. And so I visited her in Norway. So yes, the answer is yes.
Oh, good. Okay, so how do you handle healthcare? And do you have travel insurance, or do you use public insurance or public services? How does that work?
So when I first moved to France, I did not think that I'm an American, so I have the American mindset. I did not think that I had the right to healthcare. And
Mhm.
so my first couple of years, for my visa, I needed at least travel insurance, with a certain coverage level. And then I paid for my doctor's visits, and for my, maintenance medication. I just paid out of pocket. And, 29 euros for a doctor's visit, 45 euros for blood work, 12 euros for my prescriptions. I was like, okay, I can afford that. And then I started dating a French guy, and he was surprised that I didn't have this, what they call the carte vitale, the public health system. And I said, "But I'm not a citizen. I don't qualify." He's like, "No, no, you are a resident here. You absolutely do qualify." And he helped me with the paperwork. And I don't know, 3 or 4 months later, I got my carte vitale, which is a green card that you go when you get your prescription, you hand it to the pharmacist, they put it in the machine, and your prescriptions are covered. You go to the doctor, you have to pay, but then you get a check or money put into your bank account after the fact. So it's um, it's a neat system. As an entrepreneur here, I pay social charges, and so that's like disability, and that's retirement, and that's healthcare. So it's kind of all melded together, but all of that is not it's not cheap. It's 22% of what I earn every 3 months, I pay into the system. So I can't tell you specifically, okay, how much does my health insurance cost, because it's kind of mixed in, and I haven't done the research to figure that out. In addition to the carte vitale, I have what they call mutuelle, which is also known as a top-up insurance. So if I go to the doctor and maybe if I go to the doctor and it's not all covered, then the top-up insurance will cover the rest. So, and for that, I pay, trying to think what I pay a year. Um, I pay so many bills at the same time, they kind of get mixed up. I think it's probably around 850 euros for the year for the top-up insurance.
Okay. And so you said 45 euros for blood work, and that was outside. That was your cost outside of having any access to the public care.
Yeah, I didn't at that point, I didn't have the carte vitale. I didn't have the mutuelle. It was, "Oh, you need blood work?" Okay, I went in, and I asked them how much it was gonna be. They said 45 euros. I'm like, "Okay, I can do that."
Well, that's outstanding
Mhm,
for just out of pocket costs. I go
mhm,
to what is it, Quest Diagnostics here in the
mhm,
States. It's
mhm,
easily over $1,000, easily
mhm,
over
mhm.
$1,000 without insurance. And my portion after insurance has covered it or insurance has provided a discount is still like $200.
Yeah, yeah. Which is why, for me, it was like, okay, I'm not on the carte vitale, and every time I'd go into a pharmacy, they'd ask me, for my carte vitale. I say I don't have one. They'd look at me like I had two heads. I couldn't understand it because, well, in the United States, health insurance is not a right, but here it is.
Yes. Okay. So my mom says you are touching on all the questions I would tend to ask. Very enlightening listening to you. And
Thank you.
Taylor B wants to know, was your French exam difficult and have you received your results yet?
So, yes and yes. So, I had taken, this isn't the first French exam that I'd taken. I had taken the TCF exam, the Test de Connaissance du Français, at a B1 level 2 years ago. And that was a test that was valid for 2 years, and then it expired. So the results were no good anymore. The B2 level DELF is what they call a diplôme, which is valid forever, although there are some caveats on if I'm going for a 10-year resident card or for citizenship. I think the results have to be within a certain time period. But it was challenging because at that level, it's 4 parts: reading comprehension, oral comprehension, written production, and oral presentation. And at the B2 level, it's not just having a conversation about what you did over the weekend. It's about, a 5 to 7 minute presentation, really, where you are an argumentative presentation, where you are arguing a point. And then after, there is what they call a debate. In my case, I didn't really get the sense that they were challenging me so much, but it was a conversation afterwards. And so that made it particularly difficult because while, I claimed that I was fluent within 18 months, the skill of giving a speech or arguing a point is not something I do well in English, right? So that was challenging. The other piece of that was in the beginning, it was really hard for me to understand fast spoken French. And I thought I would never get that. Now I'm good. I went to the movies on Sunday and I understood, I'd say 95% of that. But the other piece of it is when I first moved here, as I said, I felt illiterate, was I don't do a whole lot of writing in French. And so I had to write a 250 word argumentative, whatever it was, essay or letter, whatever whatever they were asking that day. And so while I can write, there was a time limit. And so that made it particularly challenging as well. So it was difficult, but I felt prepared. I signed up for a class to help me study. I had my friend Jordi, who I practiced my presentation skills with me, and he really helped me with that. And so I kind of got a degree of confidence, although I was still kind of not sure whether I would pass it. I received my results. I took the exam mid-March, and I received the results about a week and a half ago. And I passed. And I passed. I did more than pass. My aim was, the requirement was to get 50 points out of 100, and you needed to have at least 5 points in every area. So like if I had 60 points, but 4 in the oral production, I would have failed the exam. And so I ended up with 74.5 out of 100. So I was like, okay. And that felt good. Thank you. Thank you.
Congratulations. So is this something you need for citizenship, these exams?
So having a certain level of French is required for if you want a visa that is multi-annual. So the reason I took the TCF exam was so that once I got my profession liberal visa, which is the visa I'm on now, that allows me to have the business that I have here, I needed to have, at the time, I think it was a B1 level. I'm not sure. It's all changing. I needed to have a B1 level of French. For citizenship, the requirement, I think, is increasing to B2. So that's the level I went for. So depending on, what you're going for, what visa you're going for, you might need to have a language requirement.
Okay. Beverly says that's interesting about the language test. I don't know if English speakers could pass that kind of test in our native language. So for you to pass in French is amazing. Well done.
Thank you. Thank you, Beverly. And it's funny that you say that. I saw an article in Connection, which is a magazine in English about French things are going on in French, and it's really informative. And because the language requirements are changing, they were talking about, having to have a certain level. And they said that French people, native French speakers, struggle to pass the exam. So thank you. It is amazing. I agree with you.
Okay, so we have some more people who have joined. If you're just joining us, we're here with Patricia Brooks Courage Catalyst, and she talks about her life in France. So definitely subscribe to her channel to see more videos about her life and experiences there, and subscribe to this channel to see more interviews with expats. So my mom says, job well done.
Thank you.
And so tell us about like your day to day walking around at night. Do you feel safe? You feel comfortable in your village?
Okay, so I do. I feel safe. People, I think it's a small village. Walking around at night, I don't have any concerns. I think in Perpignan, I felt very comfortable. Um, but there was one morning, it was early in the morning, I was doing my morning walk, and I did feel a little bit nervous. So I think it's like anywhere you go, I think you need to be aware of your surroundings, but it's not like I feel unsafe here. I feel very safe here.
Okay. And you think France will be your permanent home?
I hesitate to answer that. I mean, all signs point to yes, but the reason I don't want to answer that definitively is because if you had asked me 17 years ago whether or not I would be living in France, I would have said, "What? What are you talking about?" So life has a funny way of, leading us to different places. Um, but I'm happy here. I don't have any intentions of moving any place else anytime soon. So France is home for me.
Mhm. Okay. And what is a must try dish in France? I'm going there this summer. So what's a
Okay.
must try dish?
Well, so I mean, there's so many. I think if you're talking traditional French, because depending on where you are, there are different different cuisines, right? Like here, like there's Catalan dishes, but I would say, and I don't know if you're a vegetarian or not, but magret de canard, which is duck breast, that is a traditional French dish. Um, so yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
Magre de canard.
Canard.
Okay.
Hmm.
All right. I'm gonna look for that when I go.
Hmm. Hmm.
So, how would you say your quality of life has improved since moving to France?
I think, as I spoke about earlier, I spoke about how I didn't necessarily realize that that there was this undercurrent of pressure or stress that I was living under, or living with. And it wasn't until I was out of it that I felt like, ooh, like that sense of relief. So I feel like my stress level is lower. And I think that the idea, I moved here on a career break because I was ready to not go into my 9 to 5 job, right? That was a big stressor for me as well. Um, Now, while I probably work harder than I have worked at any job that I had, it's a job that I'm passionate about and where I can see that I'm making a difference. And so I feel like I'm living my purpose. I wake up in the morning and I don't dread the day.
Hmm.
It's all those things that just make my life and experience here so wonderful.
Yes, Beverly says you gave us a lot to consider and think about, and she's taking life as it comes, which is easier said than done, and she admires that so much.
Oh, thank you.
So you wake up, it's Tuesday morning, and what does your day look like?
Oh, well, and the sun is coming out. I've got to tell you, it's been cloudy all day long, right? I sit facing this window, I have a great view, and it seems like it never fails. I'm on a live stream or I'm on a call and it's cloudy all day and then the sun. So my apologies. It's Tuesday morning. I wake up. What does my day look like? It really depends. Right now, because I have this new intern, I get up earlier than I would, around 6 or 6:30. I get up and I do my meditation, then I go for my morning walk. My morning walk used to be later, but because I have my meeting with my intern every morning, that has given me a little more structure. Have my meeting with my intern, then we'll have some calls, some coaching calls, some sales calls in the afternoon because in early evening because of the time difference. Um, once a week or I'll go have coffee with friends or have go have lunch with them. Um, Once a month, I will go to the movie. That's a treat that I give myself. So it really just depends. I do a lot of work. I walk a lot. Um, I think I had been doing some other activities like qigong on Thursdays, and I got out of that because I was putting my head down to study. And I think that now that's behind me, well, maybe because I'm still working on this third book, but now that's behind me, I think that I want to pick that back up because that's another way to kind of make friends and have community.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay. So if anybody has any questions, they can put them in the chat. And I have one more question. So, did
Mhm.
you find what you were looking for by moving to France?
I'm not really sure if I even knew what I was looking for in moving to France. I had this idea that I wanted the challenges. I had this idea that I wanted to speak French fluently. And so, yes, on that level, absolutely. But I think there was something deeper that I didn't know that I was looking for. And that was a place that felt good to live in, where I that felt like home to me, right? I When I was at university, I was so homesick my freshman year, right? So the fact that, I moved across the world by myself, and while I did have some hesitation about quitting my job, I didn't feel homesick. It wasn't like, oh, I miss this, or I wish I was home, or I didn't have any of that. It felt right immediately. So I think that that's what I was looking for. I didn't know it, and yes, I found it.
Okay. So, thank you. Do you feel like there is anything that we didn't touch on that our guests should know?
Um, I think that I think that moving abroad is a big step. And if you want to do it, by all means, do your research, figure some things out, get your money together. And I think one thing that kind of gets overlooked is sometimes people will make a move abroad without having a solid why behind their move abroad, a purpose, what they are running toward. You asked me the question, well, you weren't really running from something. And even if there is something that is causing you to say, where I am now doesn't feel like the place I want to stay, what is it that the place that you are looking to move to will allow you to have, be, do, or become? Because when you can frame it that way and have a more positive outlook, the chances that you will be happier in making the move will be greater.
Yeah, that is great advice. Yeah, have be do.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So thank you for joining us here. I'll put your channel up here again. So if anybody joined recently, we have Patricia Brooks Courage Catalyst, and she has all kinds of videos about moving to France and also a coaching business to help people achieve things that they want to do at this stage in their life. And yes, we'll have to have you back on
Um,
in a few years, maybe next year, to see what's going on.
yeah, to see where life takes me. I want to thank you so much, Tiffany, for asking me to be a part of this. This has been wonderful.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Bye.